The salvage ship moved slowly through the debris field. Captain Vexter watched the scanner screens with tired eyes. He had been doing this job for 20 years, picking through the bones of dead civilizations. Most days they found nothing but worthless scrap metal. Today was different. The scanner showed something massive hidden inside a cluster of asteroids. Vexter ordered his crew to investigate. As they got closer, the shape became clear. It was a ship, but unlike any design in the galactic records. The hull was dark gray, covered in countless small craters from thousands of years of impacts. Strange symbols marked its surface, words in a language no one recognized. "How big is it?" Vexter asked his second officer. 3 kilometers long, Captain. Maybe more. The sensors are having trouble reading through the hull. Vexter felt excitement rise in his chest. A ship this size meant technology, weapons, maybe even precious metals. He ordered the crew to prepare boarding equipment. Within an hour, they had cut through an airlock on the ship's side. The corridor beyond was dark, except for dim red emergency lights. They flickered weakly, barely holding power after countless years. Vexter led 5 crew members inside, their boots clanging on metal floors. The air was stale but breathable. Somehow, the ship still held atmosphere. They moved deeper into the vessel. The walls were covered in more of those strange symbols. Vexter took pictures of everything. Someone somewhere would pay good money for this discovery. They passed rooms filled with equipment they didn't recognize, consoles with dead screens, and sealed doors that wouldn't open. After an hour of searching, they found something that made everyone stop. It was a large chamber at the ship's center. In the middle stood a cylinder made of clear material, frost covering its surface. Inside, they could see a figure. "Is that a person?" One crew member whispered. Vexter moved closer. Yes, it was definitely a person. A humanoid male, suspended in some kind of liquid. He wore a dark uniform with patches and symbols. His face was peaceful, eyes closed as if sleeping. Vexter had seen stasis pods before, but never one this old and still working. "Check the console," Vexter ordered. His engineer examined the controls beside the pod. Most of the writing was in that unknown language, but some symbols were universal. Power levels, temperature readings, life signs. All were still active. "Captain, this person is alive. The pod is keeping them in suspended animation. Can we wake them?" "I think so, but I don't know if we should. We don't know what species this is, or if they'll be hostile." Vexter thought about it. A living specimen from an unknown civilization was worth more than any amount of scrap metal. But there were risks. He looked at the sleeping figure again, studying the uniform. Whoever this person was, they had been someone important. The uniform suggested military service. Do it carefully, Vexter decided, but have weapons ready. The engineer worked at the console for several minutes. Slowly, the frost on the cylinder began to clear. The liquid inside drained away. The pod opened with a hiss of released pressure. The figure inside remained still. Then he gasped. His eyes opened, and he collapsed forward. Vexter's crew caught him before he hit the floor. The man was breathing hard, his body shaking. He looked around with confused eyes, trying to focus on the faces surrounding him. Where am I?" he said in a language none of them understood. Vexter activated his translator device. After a moment, it began processing the words. "Where am I? What happened?" The translation came through now. "You're safe," Vexter said. "We found your ship. You were in stasis. How long have you been asleep?" The man tried to stand, but his legs were too weak. He sat on the floor, looking around the chamber with growing confusion. "Stasis? No, we were just—" There was a battle. The Devourers were coming. "We had to." He stopped, his face going pale. How long? We don't know. Your ship has been drifting for a very long time. The man looked at Vexter properly for the first time. His eyes widened as he took in the alien features, the different uniform, everything that told him this wasn't his crew. Who are you? What species? I'm Captain Vexter of the Calrathi Empire. This is my salvage crew. What's your name? The man hesitated. Day 1. Tactical Officer Day 1 of the Terran Defense Coalition. He looked around again. Where's my crew? Where are the others? You're the only one we found alive. Can you tell us about your ship? We've never seen this design before. Day 1 tried to process this information. You don't know Terran ships? That's impossible. We have vessels across half the galaxy. He stood up slowly, holding on to the pod for support. I need to check the ship's logs. I need to know what happened. Vexter exchanged looks with his crew. Terran Defense Coalition? There was no such organization in any galactic record. He decided to let Day 1 move around, but kept his crew close by just in case. They followed Day 1 through the corridors. Despite his weakness, he moved with purpose, clearly knowing his way around. He led them to what looked like a command center. The consoles here were dark, but when Day 1 touched one, it flickered to life. Text scrolled across the screen in that unknown language. Day 1 read in silence. His expression changed from confusion to shock to horror. His hands started shaking. No, he whispered. This can't be right. What is it? Vexter asked. The date. The star charts. Everything is. Day 1 turned to face them. How long did you say this ship has been drifting? We can't be certain, but based on the damage patterns, at least several thousand years. Day 1 sat down heavily in a chair. 5,000 years. I've been asleep for 5,000 years. He looked up at Vexter. What happened to Earth? What happened to humanity? Vexter didn't know how to answer. I don't know what Earth is. I've never heard of humanity. The words hung in the air. Day 1 stared at him, trying to understand what he was hearing. His people, his civilization, had vanished from galactic memory. 5,000 years was long enough for empires to rise and fall, long enough for humanity to be forgotten entirely. Before anyone could speak again, the ship's lights suddenly brightened. Systems throughout the vessel began powering up. Console screens came alive, showing streams of data. A deep vibration ran through the floor. What did you do? Vexter demanded. Nothing. I just accessed the logs. Day 1 looked around in wonder. The ship is waking up. It recognizes my authorization codes. Outside the ship, in the depths of space, an automated beacon activated. It sent out a signal across old communication networks, reaching into dark corners of the galaxy where other ancient vessels waited in silence. One by one, they began to hear the call. Humanity was waking up. Day 1 spent 3 days, recovering while learning about the galaxy that had forgotten him. Vexter provided him with historical records and star charts. Everything Day 1 had known was gone. The political powers, the trade routes, even the constellations looked different after 5,000 years. The ship's name was the Indomitable Dawn, a dreadnought-class warship built during humanity's final conflict. As Day 1 explored its systems, more memories returned. He remembered the enemy they called the Devourers, machines that consumed entire star systems to fuel their expansion. He remembered the desperate battles, watching colonies burn as his people fought to survive. The ship's logs told the rest of the story. Humanity had won that war, but at terrible cost. Billions died. Entire planets were left as lifeless rocks. In the aftermath, humanity made a choice that Day 1 struggled to understand. They decided to withdraw from galactic affairs, to hide their fleets and go silent. The logs said it was to preserve peace, to give the galaxy time to heal without human interference. But not everyone agreed with that choice. The logs mentioned a faction called the Iron Vanguard, who refused the order and vanished into deep space. Day One wondered what happened to them. He was reading through tactical reports when Vexler rushed onto the bridge. "We have a problem. A Kalrathi military fleet just arrived. 30 warships, led by Commander Ralanik. He's demanding we surrender the ship and hand you over." Day One looked at the tactical display. The Kalrathi ships were surrounding them, weapons charged and ready. He recognized the formation, a standard containment pattern designed to prevent escape. Why would they do that? Because you're valuable. Ancient technology, knowledge of lost civilizations, weapons that might be superior to current designs. My superiors want all of it. Vexler looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry. I had to report our discovery. I didn't think they would respond like this." Day One studied the display. 30 ships against one. The indomitable Dawn had been powerful in its time, but could it still fight after 5,000 years? He accessed the ship's weapons systems. To his surprise, everything was operational. The automated maintenance systems had kept the ship ready for combat all this time. "Open a channel to Commander Ralanik." The main screen flickered, showing a Kalrathi officer in elaborate armor. His face was covered in ceremonial markings that indicated high rank. "Surrender the vessel immediately," Ralanik said without greeting. "You have 1 hour to comply, or we will take it by force." "This is Officer Day One of the Terran Defense Coalition. This ship is property of humanity, and I'm not surrendering anything." Ralanik laughed. "Humanity is extinct. That ship belongs to whoever claims it, and I claim it in the name of the Kalrathi Empire. Last warning. Leave now, or I'll defend this vessel. You're outnumbered 30 to 1. Don't be foolish." Day One cut the transmission. He turned to Vexler. "Get your crew off this ship. Take your salvage vessel and move to a safe distance." "You're really going to fight them?" "I don't have a choice. And I'd rather not have civilians caught in the crossfire." Vexler nodded slowly. He gathered his crew and returned to their ship. Within minutes, they had detached and moved away. Day One watched them go, then sealed the indomitable Dawn and prepared for battle. The hour passed quickly. When Ralanik's deadline expired, the Kalrathi fleet opened fire. Missiles streaked toward the human ship, hundreds of them filling space with exhaust trails. The indomitable Dawn's point defense systems activated. Automated turrets tracked the incoming missiles with inhuman precision. Energy beams and projectiles intercepted them one by one, creating a sphere of explosions around the ship. Not a single missile reached the hull. Ralanik's confident expression changed to surprise. He ordered his ships to close in and use their main guns. The Kalrathi vessels advanced in formation, charging their heavy weapons. Day One let them come. He waited until they were in optimal range, then fired. The indomitable Dawn's railguns spoke. Solid projectiles accelerated to a fraction of light speed, invisible to the naked eye. They crossed the distance in milliseconds and struck 3 Kalrathi cruisers. The impacts were devastating. Shields that were supposed to stop any conventional weapon simply failed. The projectiles punched through armor, through internal compartments, through the far side of the hull. All 3 ships lost power and began to drift. The Kalrathi fleet scattered, trying to avoid becoming easy targets. They returned fire with their energy weapons, but the human ship was already moving. It accelerated with impossible agility for something so large, dodging most of the incoming fire. The few shots that connected splashed harmlessly against shields designed to withstand far greater punishment. Day One didn't try to destroy the Kalrathi ships. He disabled them instead. Railgun shots took out engines and weapon systems. Precision strikes knocked out command centers without killing the crew. Within 10 minutes, half the Kalrathi fleet was crippled and helpless. Ralinik retreated with his remaining ships, broadcasting distress signals. Day one let them go. He opened a channel that would reach across the entire sector. This is the Terran warship Indomitable Dawn. To all civilizations listening, humanity has returned. We did not build ships like this to conquer or destroy. We built them to protect. We defend ourselves and those who cannot defend themselves. Leave us in peace, and we will do the same. Attack us, and you'll learn why the galaxy once feared our fleets. He ended the transmission and sat back in the command chair. His hands were shaking from adrenaline. He had just fought a battle against ships 5,000 years more advanced than what he remembered, and won easily. What did that say about human technology? The answer came 3 hours later. Across the sector, automated systems began receiving the distress signal the Indomitable Dawn had sent. In hidden orbits around dead stars, in asteroid fields marked as navigation hazards, in the debris clouds of ancient battles, ships began to wake up. Power cores that had been dormant for millennia came back online. Engines tested their thrust. Weapons systems ran diagnostic checks. Shipboard computers reviewed their last orders and found them still valid. Protect humanity, defend the innocent, maintain the peace. A ghost fleet stirred from its long sleep. Dozens of ships and hundreds began moving toward the beacon source. Automated shipyards hidden in forgotten systems received the signal too. Assembly lines that hadn't moved in 5,000 years began to turn. Raw materials were sorted, processed, and formed into components. New ships began to take shape in construction bays, continuing projects that were interrupted so long ago. And in a remote station orbiting a red dwarf star, another stasis pod received power. Its systems checked the occupants' vital signs, determined revival was safe, and began the wake-up sequence. The frost on the cylinder cleared. The liquid drained away. The pod opened. Admiral Hana gasped as consciousness returned. She was older than day one, gray streaking her hair, lines around her eyes from years of command responsibility. She had been Fleet Admiral of the Terran Defense Coalition's Third Fleet, one of the highest-ranking officers in all of humanity. She pulled herself out of the pod and looked around the empty station. Where was everyone? Where was her crew, her staff, her fleet? The last thing she remembered was ordering her ships to their hiding positions, then entering stasis herself to wait out the recovery period. Something was wrong. She could feel it. The station was too quiet, the air too stale. She made her way to the command center and accessed the logs. When she saw the date, she sat down slowly. 5,000 years. She had expected to sleep for maybe a century, 2 at most. Not 5,000 years. What had happened? Why hadn't anyone woken her sooner? She accessed the communication systems and found the answer. A signal was broadcasting across old Terran networks. A distress beacon from the Indomitable Dawn, one of her fleet's finest ships. Someone had woken up, activated a vessel, and now the entire ghost fleet was stirring. Hera smiled despite the shock. She wasn't alone. At least one other human had survived. She began sending her own signals, calling the fleet to her position. If humanity was waking up, they would need leadership. They would need organization. They would need a fleet admiral. News traveled fast in the galactic communication networks. Within days, every major civilization knew about humanity's return. The reactions were mixed and often contradictory. Some species saw opportunity, others saw threat, and a few saw both. The Kalrathi Empire was furious about their defeat. Emperor Thalrax convened emergency war councils, demanding his military find a way to eliminate the human threat before it grew stronger. His advisors argued over strategy, while intelligence services scrambled to learn more about these mysterious Terrans. The Valor Collective, a federation of merchant worlds, saw things differently. Their Council of Trade voted to send diplomatic envoys to the humans, offering alliance and mutual benefit. They believed any species advanced enough to sleep for 5,000 years must have valuable knowledge to share. The Chromoth hegemony responded with respect. They were a warrior culture who valued strength above all else, and the human victory over superior numbers impressed them. They sent a message of formal greeting and a request for honorable combat between champions. It was their way of showing interest in friendship. Admiral Hana coordinated the awakening ships from her station. Over 2 weeks, 47 human vessels responded to her signals. Some were warships like the Indomitable Dawn. Others were support ships, medical vessels, science ships, and even a few colony transports. Most importantly, hundreds of stasis pods were found and opened. The human population grew from 1 to over 3,000. Hana established a command structure quickly. She appointed officers, assigned duties, and organized the scattered ships into a coherent fleet. When she finally met Day One through a video transmission, she felt relief at seeing another human face. "Officer Day One, thank you for waking us up. Without your beacon, we might have slept forever." "I didn't mean to wake everyone, Admiral. I just accessed the ship's logs. Sometimes the best outcomes come from accidents. Report your status." Day One told her everything. The battle with the Kalrathi, the diplomatic messages from other species, and most importantly, what he had learned from the ship's records. He explained humanity's choice to withdraw, the war against the Devourers, and the faction that had refused to accept the peace. Hana listened carefully. Much of it matched what she remembered, but there were gaps in the logs, information that had been classified even from her. "We need to understand what happened to Earth. Why the silence? Why did no one wake us for 5,000 years? I've been investigating that. I captured some data from a pirate ship. It mentions Earth in old historical records." Day One sent her the files. "It's not good news." Hana read through the documents. According to these sources, Earth had gone silent about 4,800 years ago. No signals, no ships, nothing. The colony worlds humanity established had been abandoned or failed. As far as the galaxy was concerned, humanity had simply ceased to exist. The reason for their disappearance remained a mystery. "So we're all that's left," Hana said quietly. 3,000 people out of billions. We can rebuild. The automated shipyards are producing new vessels. In a year, we could have a fleet of hundreds. Ships without crews. What's the point of having 1,000 warships if we don't have enough people to operate them? Hana shook her head. "We need to think carefully about our next moves. Every decision we make will determine humanity's future." That future became more complicated when the diplomatic missions arrived. The Valor Collective sent a trade delegation to Hana's station. They offered technology exchanges, trade agreements, and military cooperation. In return, they wanted human protection for their merchant fleets against pirates and raiders. Hana listened to their proposals with interest. The Valor seemed genuine in their desire for peace. Their people valued commerce over conquest, and they controlled significant resources across dozens of star systems. An alliance could give humanity much-needed support, but she couldn't make that decision alone. She called a council of all awakened senior officers. 23 people gathered in the station's conference room, representing different specializations and perspectives. The debate lasted hours. Some officers argued for isolation. Humanity had tried integration before, and it led to the war with the Devourers. Better to stay hidden, grow strong in secret, and avoid galactic entanglements. Others wanted aggressive expansion. 3,000 humans with superior technology could carve out an empire. Why should they beg for alliances when they could take what they needed? Day One spoke for a middle path. We should help those who ask for help, but not force our presence on anyone. Build relationships slowly. Prove that humanity can be trusted. Hannah agreed with him. They voted to accept the Vaylor proposal, but on limited terms. Human ships would protect Vaylor merchant convoys in exchange for food, raw materials, and intelligence about the current galactic situation. It was a small start, but a start nonetheless. While these negotiations proceeded, a young man named Siok woke up on a medical transport ship. Unlike the military personnel, he was a civilian engineer who had been helping repair ships during the war. He had no combat training, no tactical knowledge. He was just someone who was good at fixing things. When Siok learned he was one of only 3,000 surviving humans, he cried. He had a family on Earth, friends, a whole life. Now it was all gone, turned to dust millennia ago. The military personnel seemed to handle it better. They had training for dealing with loss. Siok was just an ordinary person trying to process an impossible situation. Hannah heard about Siok's situation and called him to her station. When he arrived, nervous and uncertain, she spoke to him privately. I know this is hard. I know you're not a soldier. But we need people like you, more than we need warriors right now. We have ships that need maintenance, systems that need upgrades, stations that need to be built. Your skills are valuable. I just fix things, Admiral. I'm not special. Everyone here is special, because everyone here is all we have. We're not just rebuilding a military fleet. We're rebuilding a civilization. That takes engineers and farmers and teachers, not just soldiers. Siok found purpose in those words. He joined the engineering teams and threw himself into work, helping to restore damaged ships and improve their systems. His presence reminded everyone that they were fighting for more than territory or power. They were fighting for the survival of their species. Meanwhile, on the Kalrathi throne world, Emperor Thalrax made a decision that would change everything. In a secret facility deep underground, his scientists had been studying captured technology from the war against the Devourers. They had reverse-engineered a weapon of terrible power, a planet killer that tore holes in reality itself. The Emperor called his finest admiral, Kevrin, to his throne room. I'm giving you command of our largest battle group. 200 ships equipped with the latest weapons. You will also take the Devourer device. I want you to find the human fleet and destroy them completely. Leave no survivors. Your Majesty, using Devourer technology is dangerous. We barely understand how it works. I don't care about the risks. Those humans humiliated us. They made our military look weak. Every day they exist, our enemies grow bolder. End this threat now, or don't come back. Kevrin bowed and accepted his orders. He left the throne world with his fleet, carrying a weapon that could destroy entire planets. His target was the Nexus Station, a neutral trading hub where intelligence suggested the human admiral was meeting with Vaylor representatives. As Kevrin's fleet moved into position, another message arrived at Hannah's station. It came from deep space, encrypted in old Terran military codes. When Hannah decoded it, she read words that made her blood run cold. This is the Iron Vanguard. We received your beacon. We've been watching the galaxy all these years, waiting for humanity to wake up. We're coming home. And this time, we won't let anyone push us aside. The galaxy will remember why they feared us. The message included coordinates and a timestamp. The Iron Vanguard fleet would arrive in 3 months. Hannah didn't know if they were coming as friends or enemies. After 5,000 years in exile, their intentions were unclear, but she didn't have 3 months to prepare. Kevrin's fleet was already approaching the Nexus Station, and with them came a weapon that could kill billions. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin. The warning came too late. Hannah was in the middle of negotiations with the Vaylor diplomats at the Nexus station when Kevrin's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 200 Kalrathi warships appeared in perfect formation, surrounding the station and cutting off all escape routes. Hannah rushed to the command center. Her forces at the station included only 12 human ships. The rest of the fleet was scattered across the sector on various missions. She had walked into a trap. "Get me Admiral Kevrin on communication," she ordered. The Kalrathi admiral's face appeared on screen. He was older than Raulinek, his features hardened by decades of service. "Admiral Hannah of the Terran Defense Coalition. I am here to deliver the Emperor's justice. Surrender your ships and yourself, or we will destroy everything at this station. There are civilians here, thousands of them from a dozen different species. Then they should evacuate immediately. You have 1 hour." The transmission ended. Hannah looked at her officers. They all knew the math. 12 ships against 200 was suicide. But they also knew they couldn't let the Kalare capture them. Human technology in the Empire's hands would upset the galactic balance of power. "Begin evacuation of all civilian vessels," Hannah ordered. "Get them away from here. All human ships, prepare for combat. We're going to buy them time." Day 1 was aboard the Indomitable Dawn, stationed on the far side of the system. When he received Hannah's distress signal, he immediately changed course. But even at maximum speed, it would take 30 minutes to reach the station. Too long. Contact every human ship in the sector. Tell them to converge on Nexus Station. And send a message to the Vaylor Collective. If they value our alliance, now is the time to prove it. While civilian ships fled the station in panic, Hannah's 12 vessels formed a defensive line. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but not outclassed. When Kevrin's hour expired and the Kalrathi fleet opened fire, the human ships showed what they could do. Point defense systems intercepted thousands of missiles. Shield generators that had been designed to withstand Devourer weapons absorbed energy blasts that should have vaporized the ships. Human vessels moved with grace and precision, their tactical computers predicting enemy movements and exploiting weaknesses, but there were too many enemies. For every Kalrathi ship the humans disabled, 3 more took its place. One by one, the human vessels took damage. Hull breaches, power failures, failing weapon systems. They were being slowly overwhelmed. Then Kevrin activated his secret weapon. At the center of his flagship, the captured Devourer device began charging. Space itself seemed to twist around it, reality bending in unnatural ways. A sphere of absolute darkness formed, growing larger with each passing second. "What is that?" one of Hannah's officers asked in horror. "Devourer technology," Hannah said. She recognized it from old reports. "It tears holes in space-time. If it reaches full charge, it will consume everything within a light year. The station, the ships, the planet below. How do we stop it?" "We can't. Not from out here. Someone has to destroy it from inside the flagship." Day 1 heard this exchange through the communication network. He was still 15 minutes away, but he saw what needed to be done. "Admiral, I'm forming a strike team. We'll board the flagship and sabotage the weapon." "That's suicide, Day 1. So is letting it fire. Give me covering fire when we get there." The Indomitable Dawn accelerated to dangerous speeds, racing toward the Kalrathi flagship. Day 1 gathered a team of 12 volunteers, all combat specialists. They checked their weapons and armor, knowing most of them wouldn't survive the mission. Behind them, more human ships were arriving. Not many, only 6 more vessels, but it helped even the odds slightly. They joined Hannah's battered defensive line and continued the fight, The Vela response came as a surprise to everyone. 30 merchant ships altered course toward the battle, their civilian captains voting unanimously to help their human allies. They weren't warships, but they had defensive shields and enough firepower to be dangerous. More importantly, they brought hope. COK watched the battle from a repair ship at the edge of the system. He wasn't a fighter, but he couldn't just sit and do nothing. He accessed the sensor networks and studied the system's layout. That's when he noticed something interesting. Hidden in the asteroid field near the system's outer edge was a structure. Old, dormant, but with a power signature that matched Terran technology. Siok cross-referenced it with database records and found a match. It was a defense platform, one of hundreds that humanity had built to protect strategic locations. Admiral Hanna. This is Engineer Siok. I found something that might help. He transmitted the coordinates and his analysis. If they could activate the defense platform, it would add significant firepower to their side. But someone needed to reach it, get inside, and bring it online. That would take time they didn't have. I'm going, Siok said. I can do this. You're not a soldier, Hanna replied. No, but I'm an engineer. This is what I'm good at. Hanna authorized the mission. A small shuttle detached from Siok's ship and raced toward the asteroid field. He piloted it carefully, avoiding combat debris and stray weapons fire. Meanwhile, Day 1 and his team reached the Kalarathi flagship. The indomitable Dawn came alongside and launched boarding pods. They punched through the flagship's shields and attached to the hull. Cutting torches burned through armor plating, and the strike team forced their way inside. The corridors were full of Kalarathi soldiers. Fighting broke out immediately. Day 1's team had superior weapons and armor, but they were vastly outnumbered. They fought their way forward, leaving a trail of unconscious and wounded enemies behind them. A young pilot named Ji Woo provided air support in a fighter craft. She dodged between the massive ships, targeting weapon systems and engine clusters. When she saw Day 1's team struggling against heavy resistance, she made a risky maneuver. Her fighter strafed the flagship's hull, blasting open hatches and creating chaos inside. It gave the strike team the seconds they needed to advance. Deep inside the flagship, they found the Devourer device. It was larger than expected, filling an entire cargo bay with strange machinery that seemed to hurt to look at. The sphere of darkness it generated was growing steadily, distorting everything around it. How do we destroy it? One team member asked. Day 1 studied the controls. They were partially Kalarathi, partially something else. The Empire's scientists had grafted their technology onto the Devourer core, but they hadn't truly understood what they were working with. We overload it, force it to consume itself. He began entering commands while his team held off the responding security forces. The weapon resisted his attempts at first, its alien programming fighting back. But Day 1 was persistent. He found a vulnerability in the control systems and exploited it. The device began shaking. The dark sphere pulsed wildly, growing and shrinking in irregular patterns. Warning alarms filled the flagship as the crew realized what was happening. Everyone out now. Day 1 shouted. His team ran back the way they came, fighting through more Kalarathi soldiers. The flagship was in chaos, crew members abandoning their posts and rushing to escape pods. Kevrin tried to maintain order, but even he could see the situation was hopeless. He ordered a full evacuation. Day 1 and his team reached their boarding pods. Most of them made it. 3 team members stayed behind, holding off pursuers so the others could escape. They died when the device finally overloaded. The explosion was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. The Devourer core collapsed in on itself, creating a temporary black hole that consumed the flagship. Then it released all that energy at once. The blast wave destroyed 20 nearby Kalarathi ships and damaged dozens more in the asteroid field. Sea-Oak succeeded in activating the defense platform. Its weapons came online and immediately began targeting Kalarathi vessels. The additional firepower turned the tide of battle. KEV single quotes RIN, rescued by a subordinate's ship, saw his fleet breaking apart. The humans had destroyed his secret weapon, killed thousands of his soldiers, and turned what should have been an easy victory into a devastating defeat. He ordered a full retreat. The Kalarathi ships that could still move fled the system. They left behind wreckage and escape pods containing thousands of survivors. The battle was over, but the cost was terrible. 4 human ships were destroyed. Hundreds of crew members died. The Nexus station was heavily damaged. Thousands of civilians were killed when station sections depressurized. The Valor Collective lost 8 merchant ships, and their brave crews. Hannah surveyed the aftermath from her command ship. They had won, but it felt hollow. So much death, so much destruction. And for what? Because one empire feared what humanity represented. Then a new message arrived. It came from the same source as before, the Iron Vanguard. But the timeline had changed. They weren't coming in 3 months. They were already here. They arrived like ghosts from humanity's past. 300 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They were massive, larger than anything in Hannah's fleet. Their hulls were black as space itself, covered in weapons that made current human technology look like toys. These were vessels designed not just for war, but for domination. Leading them was the flagship Eternal Crusade, and its commander was Admiral Taeyong. He had been a legend 5,000 years ago, a tactical genius who won battles that should have been impossible. When humanity chose peace and withdrawal, he refused. He took his fleet and vanished into deep space, vowing to return when humanity needed strength again. Hannah received his transmission request, but felt her stomach tighten. She knew Taeyong's reputation. Brilliant, ruthless, completely devoted to human supremacy. She accepted the call. Taeyong looked older than her, his face lined with scars from battles fought over millennia. His eyes were hard, showing no warmth or compromise. Admiral Hannah, I've been watching your efforts. Adequate, but insufficient. I'm taking command of all Terran forces. You have no authority over my fleet. I have 300 ships and weapons you can't imagine. That's all the authority I need. Taeyong leaned forward. Look at what just happened. You almost lost everything to a primitive empire using stolen technology. You're playing diplomat while our species stands on the edge of extinction. That ends now. What do you want? To make humanity strong again. To take what we need from the galaxy instead of begging for scraps. We'll start by subjugating the Kalarathi Empire. Then the others will fall in line, or fall to our guns. Hannah felt cold. This was the nightmare scenario she had feared. I won't help you start a war of conquest. Then step aside. I don't need your permission. Day One listened to the exchange from the indomitable Dawn. He understood Taeyong's anger and fear. After losing Earth, watching humanity nearly go extinct, who wouldn't want to ensure it never happened again? But conquest wasn't the answer. It would only create more enemies, more wars, until humanity destroyed itself. He opened a private channel to Hannah. We need to stop him, but not by fighting. We can't afford a civil war. What do you suggest? Buy time. Let me talk to him. Maybe I can find common ground. Hannah gave him permission. Day One contacted the Eternal Crusade and requested a meeting aboard Taeyong's flagship. To his surprise, the Admiral agreed. A shuttle carried Day One through the Iron Vanguard fleet. He saw ships equipped with weapons that bent light, engines that distorted space itself, shields that could probably withstand star-level heat. This fleet had been upgrading itself for 5,000 years, never stopping, never resting. They were prepared for any threat. Inside the Eternal Crusade, Taeyang met him in a conference room. The Admiral studied Day One carefully. "You're young. You don't remember how bad things were before we withdrew. I remember the Devourers. I fought them. Then you know what happens when humanity is weak. We get attacked. We get conquered. Our people die." Taeyang pulled up a holographic display showing current galactic powers. "Look at them. The Kalrathi enslave conquered populations. The Chromith wage endless wars for glory. Even the peaceful Veiler exploit weaker species economically. The galaxy respects only strength. Maybe, but there's a difference between being strong and being a conqueror. Is there? When you destroyed that Kalrathi fleet, did they respect your mercy? No, they called you weak and came back with more ships. The only message they understand is overwhelming force." Day One couldn't argue with the facts, but he disagreed with the conclusion. Before he could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the ship. Taeyang pulled up a tactical display, and both men stared in horror at what it showed. At the edge of the system, space was tearing apart. Something massive was forcing its way through from somewhere else. Energy readings spiked off the scale. Ships nearby were being pulled toward the distortion, their hulls crumpling like paper. "What is that?" Day One asked. Taeyang's face went pale. "It's a devourer. A full-grown one." The creature that emerged defied description. It was larger than a moon, its form constantly shifting between states of matter. Tendrils of dark energy reached out, touching ships and planets alike. Everything it touched simply ceased to exist, converted into fuel for its endless hunger. Across the system, panic spread. The Veiler ships fled immediately. Scattered Kalrathi vessels that had stayed to rescue survivors abandoned their efforts and ran. Even Hannah's fleet began moving away from the monster. How is this possible? Hannah broadcast on all channels. The Devourers were destroyed. We made sure of it. The answer came from an unexpected source. Emperor Thalrax himself appeared on communication channels, his face twisted in fear and regret. "We found one, damaged, dormant, buried in a dead moon. We thought we could control it, use it as a weapon. We were wrong. It broke free from our containment facility and ate our research station. I tried to stop it, but nothing works. It's going to consume everything." Taeyang watched the Devourer advance. Its tendrils reached toward the nearest planet, and billions of lives hung in the balance. He had seen this before, millennia ago, and he knew what it meant. Everyone dies unless we stop it. That thing will eat this entire system, then move to the next one and the next. It won't stop until it runs out of matter to consume. Hannah made a decision. She broadcast on all frequencies, reaching every ship in the system regardless of faction. "This is Admiral Hannah of the Terran Defense Coalition. To all civilizations present, we face extinction. That creature doesn't care about our politics or our differences. It will kill us all. We must work together or die separately. I'm extending alliance to anyone willing to fight. Kalrathi, Veiler, Chromith, everyone. Stand with humanity now, or there won't be anything left to stand for." The responses came slowly. The Veiler agreed immediately, their merchant ships moving to join the human fleet. The Chromith, who had been observing from a distance, sent a message of acceptance. Even scattered Kalrathi vessels, leaderless and desperate, moved to join the defensive line. Taeyang watched this happen with something like wonder. Different species, many of whom hated each other, coming together because one human asked them to. He had spent 5,000 years believing only force mattered, but maybe he was wrong. What do we do? He asked Hannah. We combine our fleets and hit it with everything we have. But I need your help. Your weapons are more advanced than ours. Tae Young nodded. For the first time in millennia, he felt something other than anger. He felt purpose. All Iron Vanguard ships, this is Admiral Tae Young. We're joining the defense. Follow Admiral Hana's tactical commands. The combined fleet numbered over 400 ships from a dozen different species. They formed a battle line between the Devourer and the inhabited planets. When they opened fire, the barrage was incredible. Missiles, energy beams, railgun projectiles, exotic weapons that Tae Young's fleet had developed in isolation. All of it hammered into the creature. The Devourer barely noticed. It continued advancing, its tendrils reaching out to consume attacking ships. Whole vessels vanished in seconds, their crews dying without even time to scream. Seok was monitoring the battle from a damaged station nearby. He had been analyzing the creature's energy patterns, trying to find a weakness. He found something interesting. Admiral, the Devourer has a power matrix at its core. It's what lets it tear through reality and consume matter. If we can overload that matrix, the creature should collapse. How do we overload it? Hannah asked. Someone has to get close enough to detonate a ship's reactor inside the matrix. The explosion would cause a cascade failure. Everyone understood what that meant. It was a suicide mission. Whoever flew that ship wouldn't be coming back. Day One immediately volunteered. I'll do it. The indomitable Dawn has the strongest shields. I can get close enough. No. Tae Young's voice cut across the channel. This is my responsibility. I've spent 5,000 years preparing for war. Let me use that preparation for something good. Admiral Tae Young, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do. I've seen what happens when humanity is divided. I've watched civilizations destroy themselves through internal conflict. If there's a chance my death can unite the galaxy instead, that's worth more than another 5,000 years of fighting. Tae Young ordered the Eternal Crusade to full power. His crew evacuated to other ships, while he remained at the controls alone. The massive flagship accelerated toward the Devourer, shields at maximum, engines screaming. Ji Woo and her fighter squadron escorted him as far as they dared. Sir, it's been an honor. The honor is mine. Take care of them, pilot. Help them build something better than what we lost. The Eternal Crusade punched through the Devourer's outer layers. Tendrils wrapped around the ship, trying to tear it apart. Tae Young kept going, forcing the vessel deeper into the creature's body. The hull was breaking apart, entire sections being consumed, but he pushed forward. When he reached the power matrix, he saw it clearly. A sphere of impossible energy that touched multiple dimensions at once. Beautiful and terrible. He set the reactor to overload and transmitted his final message. Humanity protects. Remember that. The explosion was like a newborn star. It tore through the Devourer's core, disrupting the energy patterns that held it together. The creature convulsed, its form becoming unstable. Tendrils collapsed. The reality-tearing effect reversed. Within seconds, the massive being folded in on itself and vanished, leaving only empty space where it had been docked. The combined fleet held position in stunned silence. Then cheering broke out across every ship, every species celebrating together. They had survived. Hannah felt tears on her face. They had lost Tae Young, a difficult man but a hero in the end. They had lost hundreds of ships and thousands of crew members. But they had also gained something precious, proof that different species could work together against common threats. Emperor Falrax sent a formal message of gratitude and apology. He disbanded the military forces that had attacked humanity and offered reparations. The Kalrathi Empire would need decades to recover from its losses, and it would be different from what it was before. The Valor Collective proposed a new alliance, not based on trade or military power, but on mutual defense. Any species could join if they pledged to help others against existential threats. They called it the Terran Concordat, honoring humanity's sacrifice. Dozens of civilizations signed immediately. Even the Chromith joined, seeing honor in the concept. Within months, the Concordate became the most powerful political force in the galaxy. Dedicated to preventing another Devourer crisis, Dathana became the Concordat's first commander. Day One served as her advisor, traveling between worlds to build diplomatic relationships. Seok led the engineering effort to repair damaged worlds and build defensive networks. On Earth, reconstruction teams finally landed. The planet was dead, its cities in ruins, but it could be brought back. They planted gardens in memory of all species that fought together. Above the gardens, a simple memorial bore words that summarized everything. We stand together or fall alone. Human ships spread across the galaxy again, but not as conquerors. They served as protectors, guardians, mediators. Their technology was shared freely with allies. Their veterans trained others in defensive tactics. They became the galaxy's shield instead of its sword. Monitoring stations watched deep space constantly, looking for any sign of returning devourers or other threats. Humanity would never sleep again. They had learned the cost of isolation. The galaxy had feared human weapons, their warships, their tactical brilliance. But they learned that humanity's true power was something else entirely. The courage to sacrifice for others, and the wisdom to turn enemies into friends. That power couldn't be defeated with weapons. It could only be joined and across hundreds of worlds, in dozens of languages. People told the story of how humanity came back from extinction, not to conquer, but to protect. It became the foundation of a new era, one built on cooperation instead of domination. 3,000 humans had awakened to find themselves alone. Now they stood at the center of a galactic community, proof that even the smallest group could change everything if they held to their values. The age of isolation was over. The age of unity had begun.